This is CBC Here and Now.
Temperatures on the rise as we head through the night tonight, but for how long?
Government failure or sheer bad luck?
We are in a global economic crisis, largely driven by a commodity crisis in oil and gas.
Coming up on Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes.
There are 2 new confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the province today, and once again, both involve workers returning home from Alberta. The 2 men live in the Central Health region, but they aren't connected to past cases in that area. The 2 are members of different households, and both are in self-isolation. Contact tracing is underway, and anyone considered a close contact has been advised to quarantine. The province now has 5 active cases of COVID-19.
Well, there is a call tonight to change the COVID-19 testing system for rotational workers. This comes after a wife and mother died without her husband by her side. PCMHA Lloyd Parrott says the woman died suddenly earlier this week, and her husband is a rotational worker who is in self-isolation. Vince Whalen was told he couldn't get a COVID test until Friday, and that prevented him from being with his school-aged children who watched their mother die. Parrott says he stepped in to make testing available to Whalen this morning.
It's sad that this brings to really highlights the situation with rotational workers. Rotational workers are going and coming away from their families for long periods of time, and to come home and not be able to interact, certainly in a situation like this, it really shows the things behind the scenes that we don't take into consideration. We should be doing point of entry testing, obviously, for rotational workers specifically, if not for everyone. When we look at our points of access, I think it's a feasible thing we can do and could possibly unite people much quicker.
Well, meanwhile, the health minister says there seems to have been a miscommunication. John Haggie says there is no obstacle preventing a family from reuniting under these kinds of circumstances.
It was written into our guidelines when we revised them last around rotational workers. It's there on the website. There are flexible arrangements through the funeral homes. We work well with that association to craft some flexible guidelines around that to allow visitations for people who would technically still be in isolation. So I think it was simply a question of conveying those to someone who was very distraught, likely very tired, and obviously under a lot of stress.
Well, there are new details and concerns tonight about government's plan to grant people access to some of their pension money. The province is expediting a review as a way of helping those in a financial bind. The change in law could be debated in the House of Assembly before Christmas, but as Here and Now's Heather Gillis explains, one group says not so fast.
There's no question COVID-19 has caused many hardships here and around the world. For those facing financial hardships, the province announced in July it was considering changes to pension benefit laws. Service NL Minister Sarah Studley says changes would allow people to access money in pension funds that are transferred to locked-in retirement accounts, life income funds, or locked-in retirement income funds.
We've been expediting that review of the consultations, which ended the end of September, and we're hoping to have recommendations to go through the internal processes in the next few weeks. So I'm very optimistic and hopeful that we'll have legislation in the House.
The minister says they're still determining what changes could look like and comparing things other provinces and countries do. Though, the department does say that any potential changes would only impact former members of pension plans, and it doesn't apply to people currently paying in, retirees, or those receiving survivor benefits. Potential changes won't apply to the Public Service Pension Plan or teachers.
Well, the Public Sector Pensioners Association is opposed to this action.
Sharon Callahan is the past president of the province's Public Sector Pensioners Association. She calls the move a bad idea and believes it will cause more financial problems for people down the road because it will further reduce income.
It's hard enough in retirement years. Average pensions are only about $22,000 a year.
She says in some cases, transferring money out of a pension fund could lead to a loss of things like health plans and survivor benefits. She wants to sit and talk with government about the potential changes and she thinks they should beef up social programs to help people instead.
If the government has to change the guidelines for those assistance programs to make it inclusive of more people who might be in need, that's the route that we believe government should be taking.
Service and Health Minister Sarah Studley says she hopes to have legislation in the House of Assembly before Christmas, though if anything is passed, she says it's up to pension administrators to determine when people can get their money. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, another hit for this province's battered oil industry tonight. The Offshore Petroleum Board's call for bids to explore waters off Newfoundland and Labrador this year is a disappointment. The call attracted only one company that's planning to spend a relatively small amount of money. Here now's Mark Quinn reports.
In 2018, the industry celebrated when several oil companies promised to spend $1.4 billion on exploration. This year, one company, BP Canada, is indicating it will spend a small fraction of that, just $27 million. People who work with the industry say the oil companies are sending a clear message.
They've essentially, through this land sale, told us that they don't want to come play in our sandbox because it's not attractive enough.
Further statements by... In the House of Assembly today, government members focused on the positive and talked about getting ready for a bright future.
This is not unique to St. John's. It's not unique to Newfoundland and Labrador. This is a global economic crisis and downward pressure on a commodity. We are doing our best to ensure that we're best positioned to capitalize on this commodity when it returns.
The reality is that anybody that is in this field is going through a tough time, but I'd like to think that the measures we are taking, the creative measures we're taking, will lead to a brighter future. Thank you.
Longtime oil industry consultant Rob Strong says the industry has seen deep downturns before, especially in the 80s. But this time, he doesn't know if it will bounce back.
At the present time, with the switch to conservation, which the switch to renewables, to wind, to solar, to tidal, and the anti-fossil fuel feeling around the world, I'm not optimistic.
Strong says the low price for oil and the high cost of producing it in Newfoundland and Labrador makes this province very unattractive for oil companies. It's bad news heaped upon more bad news for thousands of laid-off oil industry workers in this province. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, NOIA released a statement today critical of government regulations. It says the offshore's prospectivity is still world-class, and it believes the lack of bidding is due to a combination of scarce capital and other jurisdictions being more competitive with shorter development times, consistent policy and regulations, and financial incentives.
Of a chilly day out there. However, that sunshine making it feel a little bit nicer. We've got temperatures around 2 degrees was the afternoon high in St. John's. As we head towards the west coast, those temperatures are starting to climb now, but we do have some a little bit of a wind chill right now, feeling more like -5 in St. John's as those winds are easing through the day. We do have an area of low pressure, or rather high pressure, skirting south of us. That's why things were fairly quiet today, but we do have some warmer temperatures moving in, and you can see that noted by this green here. And if we head through the next couple of night, or at least the night tonight rather, we're going to see these temperatures climb certainly up through Labrador in the next couple of hours. Eventually we're going to see that warm air move in as we head towards the morning hours for the island as well. I'll have all those details coming up.
Well, thanks, Ashley. Well, rain and those warm temperatures are not going to help the crowd on the west coast, all those skiers and snowboarders waiting eagerly for snow. Well, earlier this week, we learned that Marble Mountain will open in January for the upcoming season, but COVID restrictions have changed how that hill is going to operate. Manager Richard Wells walks us through what to expect come opening day.
Hi, my name is Richard Wells. I'm the Inside Operations Manager at Marble Mountain Resort. Here we are in our beautiful day lodge. This season for COVID, we've got a few policies and procedures that are changing. Our inside capacity this season, we're looking at 375 people spread out over 3 floors. So this season in the cookhouse, we will be providing grab-and-go food style options only. This may include, but not limited to, soups, sandwiches, pizzas, confectionery items, bottled drinks, and who knows after that. We're networking with local operators. There's a chance that we might be partnering with some of your favorite establishments here on the West Coast to provide some of our options as grab-and-go only in the cookhouse. Here we are outdoors. This chairlift behind me is the Lightning Express chairlift. It will be our main chairlift and only chairlift in our day-to-day operation this season. We will be operating on a 5-day cycle from Thursday to Monday. This chairlift will allow access to the entire mountain. Up above we have what's known as the up-along. The up-along, we are going to blow man-made snow to downgrade the pitch and extend it as long as possible. So again, you will be able to access the entire mountain off of our Lightning Express chairlift. Chairlift guidelines are going to be slightly different this season at Marble Mountain. Live together, ride together is a simple policy. We encourage groups of 4, families, and riding within your respected bubbles. Please keep in mind that masks are mandatory on all chairlifts and in queuing areas. All right, here we are standing outside the new bar area at Marble Mountain for the 2021 winter season. Obviously things have changed related to COVID. So this is going to be our outdoor area. Inside we'll be able to purchase craft brews. Outdoors there's going to be some tents set up with propane heaters. This will be a housing area for 19 plus, so coming right off the slopes, you will be able to show your ID, unclick from your gear, and grab a beverage while still looking at the amazing atmosphere around. Outside looking in, things might seem different at Marble Mountain for the 2021 winter season, but I can assure you we've got the same great product as always. We know we're going to be busy. Atlantic Canadians are on their way with the Atlantic Bubble. Celebrate winter at Marble Mountain Resort, and I'll see you on the slopes in 2021.
Well, there's frustration in Nunatsiavut over the condition of the airstrip in Nain. The runway is too short, it's breaking apart, and planes can't land at night because there's no lighting. And the Nunatsiavut government says the province won't do anything to help.
It's frustrating. For the next couple of years, that airstrip is potentially going to wash into the ocean. I'm at a loss for words. Again, I know that provinces can really play this numbers game, but we can't forget about basic decency and basic services.
The Nunatsiavut government has been lobbying for years for help to fix the situation. Eventually, they paid for a study after the province said it wasn't willing to contribute any money. Now they've found a new location for an airstrip. A study on that plan will cost about $6.5 million. Nunatsiavut is eligible for some federal money to help pay for it, but that requires the province to share the cost, something Edmonds says the province doesn't want to do. Well, staying in Labrador, the South Coast now has cell reception. Transmitters have been flicked on, fulfilling a promise made almost 2 years ago. Here Now's Garrett Berry has that story tonight.
This isn't a brand new phone, but it does have a brand new feature.
I like it more because if I go for like runs or something and I stop to have a break, I can just talk to my friends. I'm not alone or anything.
Used to be when we were going around town, we never had no internet or nothing, like if we were walking, but now everywhere you go, you're getting notifications and calls and everything, so it's really different.
Thanks to these transmitters, the Labrador coast is coming online.
I think Cartwright and Charlottetown and Red Bay, and I think Mary's Harbour and Port Hope Simpson will be coming on within a couple of weeks. That means that every child 5 years old will want a cell phone.
But in here, it seems that call has already been answered.
Yeah, we all have them.
Well, this year our school gave us the Wi-Fi, but the Wi-Fi with a lot of people on it is still not good.
Young people in Port Hope Simpson didn't wait to join the mobile age. In fact, some families were already paying for a plan for when they traveled.
Like when we goes up to Straits, because a lot of people goes up there a lot, we got cell service up there. So most people had it already.
Snapchat is already a favorite form of communication. Just now, it's portable, like it or not.
It's only small town. We have internet mostly everywhere anyways. And everyone's just going to be on their phones all the time when we go out.
And businesses were online too. So while this new service will bring some benefit,
With my own children, it seems to me that they're out and about more. They don't mind going out for a driving car. They don't mind just getting out of the house. So get the smell of the house off them, basically.
there's already an appetite for more.
You know, this is the beginning that we'll build on it. I'd like to see in the next 2 to 3 years that, you know, you'd have cell service equal to anywhere in the world. You know, we're not living in third world countries. And I mean, in some third world countries, they have a better cell service than we have.
Specifically, they want to see service along the Trans-Labrador Highway.
There's a push on there so that at least you can use the 911.
These new transmitters will provide some coverage on the drive, but the mayor says it's time for her region to catch up. Garrett Barry, CBC News, Port Hope Simpson.
Well, a conference focusing on reconciliation in this province is happening right now online. The 2-day virtual event is bringing together researchers, government officials, and members of the Indigenous community, all to help build a community action plan.
I think we need to break down those barriers. I think it's too many years that we've been marginalized, and we need to, you know, we're speaking up. We know that, you know, we have a voice, and we need to make people aware that we're here.
Well, the conference is called Decolonize YYT, and we'll hear more about it from the Innu education leader Gananani Davis in about 25 minutes.
Well, the chief of police says he's very pleased with how officers handled an encounter with striking Dominion workers last week. He held a news conference today to address some of the controversy caused by the RNC's presence at that picket line. Last Tuesday, police showed up at Weston Foods in Mount Pearl, where workers were protesting. Police were preparing to arrest people for blocking trucks exiting the property there, and at the time, the union said it didn't know why the RNC was getting involved. The incident sparked backlash from some politicians, and today, Joe Boland stood by the decision to send 14 officers to the site. He said 3 companies called to complain about the protesters, saying they couldn't transport their product off the lot.
It's not our intent to take a position with this. There are laws, federal and provincial, that come into play that we have to enforce. So when we got the call to come in, what these companies expressed to us is, look, if I don't get the product, if I can't get the product off the lot, it's going to perish, and I'm out the money. The companies here, they have a legal right, and they had their lawyers contact us and express that, you know, we have a responsibility as a police service here to allow them to operate legally, and we understood that, and that's exactly what we did.
Now, Unifor said it planned to file a lawsuit against the police. Boland said today that neither the RNC nor the courts have received anything yet. CBC News contacted Unifor, and we're waiting to hear back from the union. Protesters were back outside of Weston Foods today. In other news, St. John's man has been given a conditional discharge after being found guilty of threatening a police officer last year. The decision means Kurt Churchill will not have a criminal record. He received 12 months of probation, and the judge ordered Churchill to provide a DNA sample to police. Churchill owns a home on Craig Miller Avenue in St. John's that has been the subject of intense police scrutiny in a homicide investigation. In July, Jamie Cody was found shot to death on a street nearby. Police have seized bullet casings, DNA swabs, and other items from Churchill's home and sent them off for forensic analysis. No charges have been laid, and the RNC has not publicly named any suspects in Cody's death.
Chilly evening out there right now. Temperatures sitting about -1 here in St. John's. That should be where we sit and bottom out, and then the temperatures are going to warm up as we head towards the morning hours. I'll have all those details in your full forecast coming up.
Small towns deal with some of our biggest issues, but what happens when small town politics get in the way?
Every councillor is their own political party, and sometimes personalities become issues, especially in smaller towns. Everybody knows everybody.
He's been a bully for a long time, and he thinks it's my way or no way.
A new feature, Municipal Matters, starts next week on Here and Now and will begin in Harbour Grace.
All right, time for a look at the weather. A chilly one today, but that's going to change, right?
It certainly is. Yeah, you needed a warmer jacket as you headed out the door today, and but that sunshine was fairly nice.
It was.
Yeah, sitting under a ridge of high pressure. Let's take a look at the temperatures where we were sitting this afternoon. 2 degrees in St. John's. On the temperatures on the west coast are climbing, so your daytime highs is actually what you're sitting at right now. 3 degrees in Corner Brook, and then we've got temperatures around 1 degree in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and there you go there. That's where you're sitting temperature-wise right now. -2 in Lab City, and those temperatures are still sitting around the -1 degree mark, or rather are sitting in the -1 degree mark for St. John's. And that will generally, that should be what we're going to bottom out through the overnight. And again, that ridge of high pressure sliding south of us. We have a low up to the north, and it's bringing some cloud cover in right now, and then some, actually we're seeing some freezing drizzle through parts of Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and Lab City. But as these warmer temperatures move in, we could see some of that change over to the potential for some showers, just a few at this point. Doesn't look like much in the way of any precipitation as we head through the overnight tonight. However, we will start to see some showers move towards the west coast, some flurry activity along coastal areas of Labrador, and then that will work its way further west, further east rather, as we head through the overnight tonight with just the potential for some showers and also some gusty winds. But here's where you'll be sitting. These are actually what you're going to be seeing in the morning hours. So by the time you're leaving tomorrow, this is even 6 o'clock in the morning, 9 degrees is what it will be in Corner Brook. Those winds are going to ramp up with southerlies gusting anywhere from 60 to as much as 80 kilometers per hour, generally in those exposed areas. And then once these temperatures warm, so for Happy Valley, Goose Bay, you're going to see a temperature near 5 degrees for most of the night tonight, but then you're going to drop in Lab City down to about -7. And again, note this wind shift. So back from southerlies to westerlies, and that's why you're going to see your temperature drop in the west. As far as the winds go, they will ramp up, like I said, overnight tonight for the west coast. You'll eventually see those winds ramp up by morning hours in the east. And then as we head through the day tomorrow, those winds will finally die down, but they're going to stay breezy in the eastern areas of the island. And then as we head through the overnight, another round of winds will move in as we head into Saturday morning as well, with gusts anywhere from 60 to as much as 80 kilometers per hour, mainly in those exposed areas. Through the day tomorrow, it's looking like we'll see mainly cloudy skies, the potential for some showers certainly in that southerly flow. Things will quiet down up through Labrador, a mix of sun and cloud. Some more showers, or rather the potential for some flurries will move in as we head through the evening hours, as another area of low pressure will move in, and that's where we're going to see that another round of winds as well, with some showers making their way through on Saturday. But again, with those warmer temperatures sitting around 8-9 degrees in the morning, they're going to climb even more so as we head into the afternoon. A number of areas seeing temperatures anywhere from 9 to 12 degrees, a little cooler for the northern peninsula, but still well above 0, 8 degrees in St. Anthony, with the potential for showers moving in the afternoon. And then for Labrador, temperatures cooling back down. So 1 degree for Happy Valley, Goose Bay, with the potential for some flurries. Same thing for Lab City. And then coastal areas, southeastern portions rather of Labrador, you're going to still see those temperatures in the single digits on the plus side of the mercury. For Saturday, there's that area of low pressure that I was talking about. That's going to move off. We are going to see the potential for some snow, potentially for the northern peninsula, as some colder air wraps around that one again on Saturday. The temperatures will be the warmest in the morning, and then in behind the associated cold front, we'll see those temperatures drop. So that will happen from west to east across the island through the day on Saturday. Another ridge of high pressure is going to move in, and that's going to keep the temperatures cold as we head into Sunday. So we're going to see that temperature drop certainly, and that really sticks around as we head into Sunday as well. So here's your temperatures. Again, these will be in the morning, 8 to 11 degrees, and then we'll see those temperatures drop. And then I've got the flurry icon in there for most of us, because we're going to see that change over. Once those temperatures dip back down, we'll see that potential for showers change back over to flurries, and then staying chilly up through Labrador with that potential for flurries sticking around into Sunday. Back down, like I said, 1 to 3 degrees, which is well below where we should be sitting this time of year. -6 in Lab City and -4 in Nain. After that, a little bit of a roller coaster, back up into the mid-single digits, and then some shower activity expected on Monday. Tuesday looks nice at this point with some sunshine. And then same thing for both central and western Newfoundland as you see your temperatures dip and then back up. At this point, it's looking like we could see double digits yet again on Tuesday for both central and western Newfoundland. But overall, those overnight lows are still going to stay in those single digits. For eastern Labrador, back down to the -single digits and then back up on Tuesday as we see that push of warm air. Could see some freezing rain with this one as well. And then western Labrador, you're looking at a temperature near 6 degrees by the time Tuesday rolls around. Wanted to share this beautiful shot, magical evening scene in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Thank you so much to Shelley for sharing that with us. And if you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
We absolutely can change the attractiveness of our industry in Canada. Absolutely, unquestionably.
Okay, so how do we do that? Why, this insider says we are part of the oil and gas problem. His perspective just ahead. Wednesday, November the 11th this year, a very different kind of Remembrance Day. The big crowds we've seen in recent years, not permitted because of COVID-19. CBC Newfoundland and Labrador brings you live coverage on Wednesday, November the 11th at 10:50, that's 10:20 in most parts of Labrador on CBC Radio 1. Welcome back to Here and Now. Well, some news in the oil industry. Every year the province makes a whole bunch of land available way out there, and it's up to oil companies to express an interest. This year, not a lot of interest. Joining me now is Andrew Bell. He is in the oil industry. What's your sense of the significance of what's happened?
First and foremost, I guess the response to the land sale this year is very disappointing, especially considering the amount of information and detailed information the government provides to prospective partners with regards to seismic information. While I understand that the price of oil is off and there's a general downturn in the oil and gas industry, this is unprecedented. 27 million when we've had as high as 1.2, 1.4 billion in previous years.
So let's just stop there for a second. So 27 million this year, and it was a few years ago, we were talking billions, now tens of millions?
Yes.
And this year it's 16 or 17 parcels, and only BP has expressed interest in anything?
In one parcel of the 16.
So what does that mean for people who don't understand the oil industry? How significant is this?
Well, it basically sends a very strong message to all levels of government that we're not competitive globally. I mean, when you look at some of the players in the oil and gas industry, they're investing their money into markets where they provided incentives, such as Norway. Norway, I think, had 33 in the bid round this year, 33 parcels go, and the North Sea had 66, if I'm not mistaken. So I look at this and say, it's an unfortunate situation that we haven't done enough to be globally competitive and to compete for investment dollars.
Your company, what does your company do exactly? Because obviously if there's no exploration going on, this must affect your bottom line somehow.
It affects the local service supply industry tremendously. I mean, we provide products and services to the oil and gas industry, and while it won't affect them necessarily today, it will certainly affect them next year, the year after, and the year after. Exploration's key to the industry and growing the industry. I mean, it's the first part. You've got exploration, development, production, and so on. And if you don't get that exploration, you don't get the play on to development and production. And I think that's where we're really falling down as a country. And in this province in particular, for our oil and gas industries, we're just not able to grow it. And we have such a small industry at this standpoint in its infancy. It's a shame that seems to me that the federal government wants to leave the oil in the ground as opposed to develop our own resources we'll buy from foreign countries.
So when you say our industry is in its infancy, is it, we're just starting and then we never actually get to leave the cradle?
Basically, I mean, we have 4 installations offshore. Norwegian continental shelf has approximately 100, North Sea has 160, Gulf of Mexico has 130, something in that vicinity. I mean, one might be the other, but the reality is we really have a small industry that's just getting going, and it'd be really nice to see it grow and put some energy and effort behind growing it. I mean, fossil fuels, there is a lifespan, and where we move to renewables, this is a great bridge to a renewable economy, and I think it's one that we really need to take advantage of. I mean, as goes the oil and gas industry, unfortunately at this standpoint in Newfoundland, so goes the economy. And that's a frustrating situation to be in for everybody, restaurants, hotels.
But realistically, as a small player, Mr. Bell, is there much we can actually do to change the world oil situation right now?
We absolutely can change the attractiveness of our industry in Canada. Absolutely, unquestionably. Norway has done things that provide incentives for companies to come and invest and explore, do exploration in off their shores. We could do a similar sort of thing, but we've chosen not to. And I think it really sends a message to the oil and gas companies that, it's not as attractive to do business here at this standpoint as it is in other places like Guyana and Norway. They've essentially, through this land sale, told us that they don't want to come play in our sandbox because it's not attractive enough. And I think that's the really disappointing thing for me and a lot of others. And I think you're going to see a lot of local companies in the local supply chain really struggle in the years to come as we don't continue to develop this. Matter of fact, some would argue it's going backwards with Suncor and the Terra Nova coming off site and, no rigs in the water. I mean, this is the first time in the year in 10 years that we have not had a rig offshore Newfoundland drilling. And that's really unfortunate. So you look at that and the spin-off of a few of their offshore supply vessels like in the background here, fewer helicopters, all of those things require personnel, require services, require maintenance, and all of those things will disappear.
Well, Mr. Bell, kind of a grim topic, but an important one. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anthony.
To the United States now, where all eyes are on the 2020 election results. Some states are still counting the numbers. Today, representatives from Georgia and Nevada spoke publicly about why counting is still going on and voiced their very real concerns for those doing the counting.
I think it's important for the entire country to understand that mail ballots on this scale is very new to the state of Nevada. We made a decision here to provide as much access as we possibly could as a result of the pandemic, and so our processes run a little bit slower. We also have to make sure that our data is being updated because we need to prevent people from voting twice in the system.
This is going to be an extremely close margin, especially in the presidential election, and we anticipate every one of those UACAVA and curable ballots and provisionals may come into account in that. So having a final one, it may take a minute.
I can tell you that my wife and my mother are very concerned for me, but we have security here. We have law enforcement who are protecting us. I am concerned for the safety of my staff. We're putting measures into place to make sure that we have the security that's necessary.
These are 159 elections directors and employees who are here to do the job of protecting democracy. When you go to talk to them, they think about that. They think about the votes of every person in this room and around the country. These are people who are not involved in voter fraud. These people are not involved in voter suppression.
Yes, that election certainly remains a nail-biter. Final results in 5 key states are still too close to call, and election officials are pleading with Americans to be patient.
Fast is great, and we appreciate fast. We more appreciate accuracy. Accuracy is going to be the bedrock upon which people will believe the outcomes of these elections, be they on the winning side or the losing side.
Most of the votes still being counted in the undecided states are mail-in ballots. Those usually favor the Democrats. Joe Biden is already significantly ahead of Donald Trump in Electoral College votes, but 270 is the magic number to win. Biden is currently leading in Nevada and Arizona, and over the past 24 hours, he's narrowed Donald Trump's lead in Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania.
Newfoundland's French Shore. See what life was like there almost 35 years ago. Sunday at noon and Monday at 7.
A virtual conference called Decolonize YYT is happening today and tomorrow. It's hosted by First Light and Memorial University. It's a series of discussions with Indigenous leaders about decolonizing public services. Joining me now is one of the panelists that took part in today's session. Ganani Davis is an education director with the Innu Nation. Thank you so much for being here.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Well, we hear about colonialism, how settlers took control of Indigenous lands. So can you explain this idea of decolonization? What does that mean?
Well, it is definitely a big word. That's something that, is, as I said earlier in the panel, was that's for us. It's a new word for the Innu, because for me, it's breaking down the barriers, breaking down what has been done to the Innu. I think it's too many years that we've been marginalized. We're speaking up. We know that we have a voice, and we need to make people aware that we're here.
And the conference explores different topics about public services like education, which is your expertise, healthcare and housing. How do you go about breaking down those barriers? How do you decolonize those public services?
Well, I think we need to teach, we need to educate a cultural sensitivity training in government offices, services. I think just getting to know people in your region, finding out more of the history of First Nations and Inuit and Indigenous people in the country.
The conference began today, and because of COVID, like so many things these days, it was held virtually. But why is it so important that these discussions be held now and even in that way?
I think with everything that's going on in the country, systemic racism happening, and it's not just recent, it's been going on for a long time. And people are starting to speak up and getting educated and knowing our where we come from, and that it's okay to speak up. It's been too many people, Indigenous people, have been put down, whether it's in education, whether it's in health system, in the justice system. There's so many wrongs been done on Innu people. We've been hurt so many times that I feel like sometimes, is that person racist, or is that person just doesn't know, ignorance, and learning to speak up and telling our people that it's okay.
Do you think things are getting better or getting worse?
They're getting better in a sense, but people didn't talk about it before. So when I say it's getting better, is that we're speaking up more about what's been happening to us. Now, I don't know if it's getting better with, people that are not willing to change. So we're more open about, the racism. We're open on talking about the topic. Now, whether people are changing, that's, I think, a different story.
Ganani Davis, thank you so much for speaking with us today and for sharing your perspective on this.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
The second wave of the pandemic has brought Canada to a new abysmal benchmark. There are now more than 250,000 cases of COVID-19 infection right across the country. The actual number is 250,785 cases. More than 60% of the country's population lives in Ontario and Quebec. And that's where the highest infection numbers are coming from. More than 1,100 new infections in Quebec today, nearly 1,000 more from Ontario. And the numbers in Manitoba and Alberta are disproportionately high for their population size. The virus has now claimed the lives of 10,381 people in Canada. Well, scenes out of London, England last night looked very different from what we're used to, more party than pandemic. A second lockdown began in England today. All non-essential venues have been ordered to close in an attempt to curb COVID-19. The UK is one of the worst hit countries in the world. But as Dominic Valitis reports, the government insists that these restrictions won't be in place for long.
Central London last night, just hours before England's second national lockdown came into effect, and one last chance to get around in before the pubs close for a month.
It's got that kind of New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve atmosphere in the air, so it's a little bit, yeah, it feels nice, but at the same time it's a little bit bittersweet.
It's a bit hard because it's like how much to celebrate. My birthday's coming up, like is it cancelled? We don't know, do you know what I mean?
When it comes to pub shutting, I think it's a great idea to curb the spread of coronavirus, but I do think it's sad for those whose jobs rely on the social aspect, and I think that might suffer.
By this morning, England was a much quieter place, with non-essential shops, pubs and gyms closed. People have been told to stay at home. Households are banned from mixing. Anyone caught breaking the rules could be fined up to $17,000.
The advice I've received suggests that 4 weeks is enough for these measures to make a real impact. So these rules will expire, and on the 2nd of December, we plan to move back to a tiered approach. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
Meanwhile, the Bank of England today announced a further $256 billion of support for the British economy, warning how tighter lockdown rules and Brexit uncertainty could lead to a slower and bumpier economic recovery. Dominic Valitis, CBC News, Bristol.
Well, you may or may not have heard about a strange sensory experience that has become a YouTube phenomenon. Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, or ASMR, is a kind of brain-tingling, soothing feeling brought on by audio or visual triggers, like listening to a person whisper into a microphone. Well, an actor from this province has captured a lot of attention on social media for his hilarious take on ASMR videos that are meant to bring a smile to the face of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians who are missing home.
The shotgun wants a dinner drink now. Close the friggin' door, boy. You're letting the Millers in. Millers in.
And Evan Mercer joins me now from Montreal, where he's attending National Theatre School. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Evan.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Can you start by telling us the inspiration behind that video? Where did you get the idea for that?
Well, you know, I'd seen some of these ASMR videos that are kind of used to really help people through their anxiety and just, you know, people getting so close to the mic and whispering things. It just flashed in my mind that I would love to hear a Newfoundlander do this, and also do it with things that would maybe make someone who was away feel like they were home if they were really longing, you know, for a little piece of Newfoundland. I did go to the convenience store and buy a scratch ticket and a Pepsi, because I thought that would be pretty necessary. I was looking for break opens, but they didn't have them up here, so that was my lot.
Can't win a friggin' thing.
There were some requests for things that I didn't have access to, because believe me, there would have been some Purity products or a can of Vienna sausages, but they're just not that common up in Montreal. So if someone wants to send some to me, I'd be more than happy to oblige. But I just kind of really thought of things that reminded me of home, you know, our love of Pepsi, a good cup of Tetley tea. That was my last tea bag I used to shake that out. And then you know, I kind of really like to think about some of the things I grew up hearing people say, or some of the things, you know, some of the older people of Newfoundland say that I love so much.
Mother put on too much salt beef.
That was probably my favorite joke, is that Mother put on too much salt beef, because that's never happened in the history of a Jig's dinner. So that was the fantasy I was trying to describe for people away.
As I mentioned, ASMR is all about triggers, and the idea is that the sounds trigger this particular feeling in the back of your neck. But the things that you chose to do, it was kind of a different kind of trigger. It was a trigger of memory for a lot of people. I know for me, when I heard, you know, shut the door, don't let the Millers in, you know, it just reminds me of childhood. And so I found it triggering in that way. Do you hope other Newfoundlanders and Labradorians who are away from home right now will get that kind of trigger from it?
Yeah, I hope so. There's definitely a theme of nostalgia and sort of having your parents talk to you. I mean, lots of people have that experience of. Another one is kind of like close the door, you're not heating up all of Shearstown, like that familial, the comfort in being like chastised by your own parents. I think, you know, a lot of Newfoundlanders have fond memories of getting a bit of a tongue lashing from their parents. So I really hope, and especially for the people who have been away for a long time or maybe don't have as much family here, just got a little bit of a moment of that, or at least that memory of that. So thanks for bringing that up, actually.
All right, well, hopefully some folks will send you some things and you can do another video. So you need Vienna sausages, Purity products, break open ticket, and whatever else.
And maybe a Big Mary, but that's just for me.
Well, Evan Mercer, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Me too. I really appreciate it.
That's good. I'll let the Millers in.
Millers in. Yeah, that was
Do you
pretty
have
funny.
any that trigger?
Some people react to ASMR and some people don't. I'm familiar with ASMR. I react to it. Yeah, I get the kind of that little feeling.
Mhm.
Like, you know, when people are like,
Right. Just
Stuff
a
like
little
that.
tingle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you've never heard of it before.
No, I hadn't, but when I was watching, I was sort of thinking, when you talked about purity, I know sometimes I'll be driving on Black Marsh Road in Centertown, and I can smell that they're actually making cookies, and it takes me right back to my grandparents' kitchen. It's the exact same, smells a very sort of memory-driven thing, and so it's a very, I really am happy if I'm cycling down and Purity Factory is making cookies. It just sends me back to my childhood.
That's your trigger.
Yeah, it's one of them, one of many. It's a good trigger. We'll save bad triggers for some other episode. What about you, Ashley? Anything that clicks with you?
No, but I would say maybe there's a weather one that we can try.
Yeah, you should try a weather ASMR.
Yeah, maybe like wind, some rain, sometimes the smell of the rain. Hey, who knows?
You need to whisper it.
Grapple.
You need to whisper the forecast.
Grapple.
Snow. I'll see what I can do.
It's going to be 11 degrees in St. John's.
Exactly. That is going to be the forecast for tomorrow, so I'm sure people will like that one. It might trigger some good memories. 11 degrees, like you said. Same thing for Corner Brook, and then we've got those winds picking up as we head through the day, certainly in the east with the westerlies. West-southwesterlies rather, gusting anywhere from 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. Now those warm temperatures are going to stick around as we head through the day on Saturday and eventually drop as a little bit of a cold front moves through. So we'll see the potential for some flurries, and that will move into the evening hours on Saturday.
All right, I'm off to bake cookies now. Have a great night.
Good night.
Good night.